Welcome back to VJ's Dark Insights, where we kind of like to delve into these really dark corners of reality and fiction.
Yeah, for sure.
And today, well, we're taking a bit of a unique twist on the whole apocalypse thing.
Yeah.
And we're calling this thought experiment, imagine surviving 536.
Yeah.
So just before we jump into that, like and subscribe,
Yeah.
the drill.
Right. Got to get those algorithms on our side, right?
Exactly. Yeah, so 536 AD. Think about that for a second, right?
Yeah.
It's a year that most people probably haven't really given much thought to.
Yeah, not exactly a year that pops up in casual conversation, right?
Exactly, but it was actually a year that kind of marked the beginning of one of the darkest periods in human history.
It really was. A lot of historians consider 536 the start of a decades-long volcanic winter. Not the kind of winter you'd picture with cozy fireplaces and hot cocoa.
Right. This wasn't like a Hallmark movie kind of winter.
Yeah, no kidding. This was a full-blown global catastrophe. A massive volcanic eruption spewed so much ash into the atmosphere that it literally blocked out the sun.
So we're talking about the sun just disappearing.
Pretty much, yeah. For over a year, the sky was this gloomy, hazy mess. Temperatures plummeted, crops failed all over the world. It was like the apocalypse, but in slow motion.
Man, that's heavy. So, okay, here's where we're going to take things in a really dark and honestly kind of fun direction.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
We're going to explore how some of the most iconic horror movie villains would fared in this real-life nightmare. The kind of figures who are used to slashing their way through fictional apocalypses. But what happens when they're faced with a historical one?
Oh, man, that's a good question. It really makes you think about, how much of their power is tied to their specific fictional world versus, raw survival instincts.
Exactly. So let's kick things off with the OG slasher Michael Myers.
Good old Michael. The guy who just refuses to die. I mean, he's got superhuman strength, that relentless pursuit, and he's already pretty darn good at surviving in the dark, right?
Yeah. Imagine him in a world where everyone's scrambling for food, for warmth, for any sliver of hope. And here's Michael, completely unfazed. He doesn't need any of that. He just keeps coming.
He's practically built for a world like that.
Yeah.
No need for sleep, no need for complicated survival strategies, just pure relentless instinct.
And think about his mask, right? In a world that's already shrouded in darkness and ash, that mask takes on a whole new level of creepy. It's like he blends into the environment, becomes this embodiment of the darkness itself.
It's a really chilling thought. He'd be like the ultimate predator in a world where everyone's already prey. But speaking of predators, what about Jason Voorhees?
Oh, man. Yeah, Jason. Another classic. But here's the thing. A lot of his power, at least in the movies, seems tied to water, to Camp Crystal Lake.
Yeah, he's always lurking in the lake, coming up from the depths. But what happens when that lake is frozen solid? When the whole environment is hostile and resources are scarce?
Suddenly, even Jason has to deal with things like hypothermia, starvation. I mean, we're talking about a world where even basic survival becomes a Herculean task.
It really challenges the idea of him being invincible, right? He might be strong, but he's still bound by the laws of nature, and 536 would be pushing those laws to their absolute limit.
Right, so would he become even more brutal, more desperate, or would this be the one thing that even Jason Voorhees couldn't overcome? Man, food for thought, right?
Definitely. It's almost like flipping the script on the whole slasher genre. But, okay, let's get a little more psychological for a sec. What about Freddy Krueger, the king of nightmares himself?
Freddy. Now that's an interesting one. How does a creature who preys on dreams and fears function in a world where everyone is already living through a waking nightmare?
Right, is Freddy's power amplified because everyone is already terrified and vulnerable? Or does it get kind of lost in the shuffle because the real world is already scarier than anything he could cook up?
It's does Freddy become redundant? Or does he have to up his game, find new and even more twisted ways to tap into people's anxieties?
Man, that's a question I don't even want to think about the answer to. Okay, the xenomorph, the creature from Alien.
Oh, the xenomorph. Now that's a whole other level of horror. I mean, this thing is like a perfect killing machine designed to survive in the harshest conditions.
Right. It thrives in isolation, in picking off its prey one by one. But in a world where entire civilizations are collapsing, where people are migrating en masse, how does it even hunt?
Would the xenomorph even be considered that big of a threat in the grand scheme of things?
Yeah, is it just another predator in a long list of things trying to kill you?
Right. It's almost like the scale of the historical catastrophe dwarfs the individual horror of the xenomorph.
It's a really interesting contrast. It makes you think about how horror works differently in fiction versus reality.
So we've gone through this lineup of horror icons.
Yeah.
And we've kind of pitted them against this real-life historical apocalypse.
And it's really made us think about what makes these characters tick, right? What makes them scary? What makes them survive?
Exactly. So now we want to hear from you. Who do you think would be the ultimate survivor of 536? And why? Head over to the comments and let us know your thoughts. We're diving deep into the darkness here at VJ's Dark Insights. But hey, at least we're doing it together, right?
That's right. And who knows, maybe by exploring these dark corners, we can learn a little something about our own capacity for resilience.
Maybe even find a little bit of light in the darkness.
Yeah.
All right. Until next time, stay curious, stay safe, and keep those lights on.
And keep imagining.
See you on the dark side.